Hi everyone, George L. Williams Jr. here. Today we are gonna read Genesis 4 through 6. You stoked? I'm so pooped. I'm so pooped. But I'm gonna do it. I made a commitment, so I'm gonna do it. We're jumping right in, and then we're gonna stop and talk. Yeah. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. Okay, so Cain is biblical Hebrew for the man, like just the man. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Puns. Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Okay, so this is actually already drawing parallels to the story of Inanna and Dumuzi, which is an ancient Babylonian story and religious cycle. And again, the Jews and Judaism is actually a kind of like breakaway from the Babylonian religion, uh, of whom Yahweh, the God of Abraham and the God of the Jews, um, was a member of their pantheon. And that's also where you get like angel names, how they all end in L. Um, it's usually translated as God, but El is actually the proper name of Yahweh's grandfather. El is the high God, the God that created the universe that the gods come from. And El is so high and so divine that they almost never ever interact with our world. But when we in a few videos when we get to the story of I think he's still Abram at the time, but eventually Abraham, he actually encounters a priest of El, but it's usually translated as a priest of the Lord because they kind of, and especially in English translations, they take all the names of different gods and just say that it's just God. When in the original text it actually just says El or Yahweh or Baal or I said Malik before, I meant Marduk. I'm so sorry, Marduk. He's a war god, so anyway. Yeah, okay, Inanna and Dumuzi. Um, so Inanna is she eventually becomes the queen of heaven and earth, which means she's the goddess overseeing the entirety of existence in the universe. Um, like heaven and earth, like the good and evil thing, like it means everything. So she's the goddess of everything. And she is courted by two brothers, a shepherd and a farmer. And she actually is in love with the farmer, but her family wants her to marry the shepherd, Dumuzi. And they both come to her house and bring her stuff. But her brother and her mom are both go with the shepherd. So this already has huge parallels to that, and we're about to get to something really fun. Aphasia. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, you will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Real deep, real quick, Lord. And also I love that they always translate that as downcast. Your face is downcast. Um, but like it gets right up to it. Sin is at your door, like, and this is actually the first instance of sin in the Bible. Because it doesn't say that like Adam or Eve sinned, it just says they broke the rules, which isn't exactly defined as sin yet. Just because it was kind of, I think, assumed that Adam and Eve were like so attuned to everything that they like did it. I don't know if they like didn't need the rules, or it was kind of like it's like a real legislative system where it's kind of like, well, something has to go wrong first, and then they have to make a rule about it. Um, and then it's a sin. Like, ooh, you know what? That's a sin. Um, but like, this is also another good example of like God giving like a preemptive like warning. Like God's omniscient, which means He knows everything. So like a lot of people already know the story of Cain and Abel. Cain kills his brother Abel, but yeah, like God's aware of like the intention and like the possible outcome and scenario. So He's like, I knew you before. He eventually says this, but like I knew you before you were born. So like He knows exactly what Cain's capable of. So He's like already being like, you need to control yourself. You need to calm down. I still love you. I like the meat. um. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Okay, and this is the fun part I wanted to talk about. So, this is the Bible. This is the actual text itself. However, a big part of Jewish culture is the kind of supplementary Jewish legends that kind of go with each story. And, like Lilith in the Garden of Eden. Um, but here, according to the Jewish legend, and they even have names. I didn't bother looking up their names, I'm sorry. But, and another parallel to the whole Inanna and Dumuzi thing is that according to the Jewish supplementary legend that goes with the story, um, Cain and Abel were actually fighting over which of their sisters they would get to marry. Um, so like that's why they were like trying to please the Lord, was like decide like who got the prettier sister, because again people were limited, and yeah. So what's cool about that though is that's kind of like a very real demonstration of the survival of a religion even older than Judaism existing within and on top of Judaism simultaneously. Like they're still very Babylonian. It's just that like they use this text as like more of like a reference to go with the mythology than like the sole source of the mythology itself. Like instead of this being like a documentation of the belief system, it's a kind of starting point. Again, because like Lilith is a goddess and figure from Babylonian mythology, so like it's the Babylonian religion just called Judaism now. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Okay, so again with the Jewish supplementary legends, a lot of people are sure that like when God puts this curse on Cain, it makes him immortal. And there's a figure in Jewish mythological cycles known as the Wandering Jew, and many Jewish scholars actually believe this to be Cain, because when God condemns Adam to return to the ground because he is from the ground, but God rebukes Cain from returning to the ground, like in a very similar language. So, a lot of people believe that Cain is the immortal wandering Jew, um, because God rebuked him not only from living things like plants and being able to till the ground, but he also rebuked him from death, to like wander the earth alone and suffering and immortality. Uh, Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Any one who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Okay, this is actually considered one of the most mysterious parts of the Bible, is that uh, no one is actually sure what the mark of Cain is. That's what that's called. Like the mark he put on Cain is just called in biblical scholar, biblical scholarism, um, the mark of Cain, and people don't know if it's like a physical mark or if it's just like a kind of curse, or if there is like some evidence to suggest it was like kind of like a physical thing on him. Uh, Not necessarily like a flesh mark or something, but kind of along the lines of like El Ojo del Dios, like the kind of like Eye of God, the like something kind of like the hand with the eye in it to ward off the evil eye, um, something like that, like a kind of like charm, and that like would have been recognizable and understood in the ancient world. Um, but like God rebukes him from. Oh, that does make it problematic for him to be the wandering Jew if like he's afraid of dying. Oh, but then God made it so people can't kill him. So, or maybe he was like conditionally immortal, like kind of like a vampire. Like he's like immortal so long as something doesn't murder him. And again with the vampires, yes, Bible. Like Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehuel, Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methusael, and Methusael was the father of Lamech. Okay, so there's two possible scenarios here, because Cain made love to his wife. So either Cain's wife is his sister, or this is an example of again like God having created more humans. It's just that like the narrative of the Bible focuses on one specific genealogy of people that God made. And also, Abel's death is the first example of the death of a human. It's the first human death. And it's just like weird that like nakedness shocked the humans, but the murder didn't. Like it's just like okay, like Lamech married two women. Like where are these people coming from? Like Lamech married two women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play stringed instruments and pipes. Zillah also had a son, Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Yeah, so God definitely made more people, because where did they come from? Like, it's just, like, straight up, like, so they leave Eden, and then, oh, there's already, like, cities and stuff. Like, also, like, Cain, like, the first thing he does is, like, okay, I'm equipping a farmer, I guess I'll build a city. Like, I love the ancient world. Like, here, Enoch, I'm gonna name a city after you. It's called Enoch. Isn't that great? Oh, and I have a pie. Bible and pie? Yeah. Oh, it's Monday. You know, it's a great day anyway. I'm stoked. Like, I have my pie. I have my Bible. I have you. Not while I'm recording this, but like when you're seeing this. So really, it's more you have me. But you know, here I am, like a prophet. Also, that's like the whole avenged 77 times. Um, it's actually usually translated 7 by 7 times. Uh, but yeah, 77 times works too. And that's one of the things that like Hebrew scholars scratch their head about, just because it's like the wording of it's difficult as to whether or not sometimes it's translated as a man tried to kill me, or it's translated here as I killed a man. And so like in the like original Hebrew, it kind of reads that like a man tried to kill him, but like was unable to because he had like a stronger protection spell on him than Cain does. Um, However, like in like Latin and like Germanic languages, it's all of a sudden like I killed a man, like I murdered somebody. It's like, oh, okay, like yeah. Um, I was just like, hey, wives, I murdered somebody. Just so you know. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth. Oh, yeah, that. Oh, I had a footnote because it said Seth meant granted. I would translate it as restored, but yeah, granted. Saying God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and named him Enosh. At the time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. I would have translated that as invoke, or kind of like summon. Like, as we discussed in the last video, these are Mediterranean people, where God has a physical presence. So when people say God's proper, like that's out, it's out of courtesy for the fact that you're not supposed to take God's name in vain, and God's name is Yahweh, and it's understood that like if you call on God using God's proper name, God might physically show up. So like you like texted him to come on over, and he did. So this is kind of like the evolution away, like because like Cain and Abel seem to have been the last generation of humans that were in God's physical presence, whereas at this point humans had to start like praying and summoning God. So yeah, this is the first time that like humans are praying not directly in the presence of God. Oh, and this is a kind of not fun part, but it has a few interesting parts. This is the Genesis 5. It's a genealogy. There's a lot of these in the Bible, but again, they're full of like bonus features. This is the written account of Adam's family line. Again, like it's making a point, like this is a specific family. Like when God created mankind, He made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them, and He named them mankind when they were created. When Adam lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. Yeah, like right off the bat, the first man lived almost 1,000 years, and like that's like, yeah, like it's like of course he did. Like what was in the water? And again, this is like definitely like heavy on the primogeniture, just because it's like, oh yeah, no, like, it's not like Adam and Eve didn't have like a ton of other kids. It's just like these are the ones that kind of mattered to the story. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, he lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. Okay, so we're going to notice a weird trend that with every single generation, the important son, I guess, has a kid at a significantly younger and younger age. When Enosh lived 90 years, he became the father of Kenan. After he became the father of Kenan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. After he became the father of Mahalalel, Kenan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Kenan lived a total of 910 years. When Mahalalel lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. After he became the father of Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Mahalalel lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. Okay, this is like the mark of Cain, one of the biggest mysteries in the Bible. Because in the Hebrew, living, like to say that something lived, is also the kind of the same way you would say someone was here. Like like when you're saying like I'm alive, you're saying I'm here, and like I'm present. And for many people, Enoch, so like it's like a difficult to translate line just because it's not that Enoch lived a total of 365 years, it's that he lived 365 years on Earth. And then God took him away from the Earth so that he technically could not die. So, according to like most biblical scholars, Enoch's still alive. And a fun thing is that it was Queen Elizabeth the First, the Great. But she had an official astrologer and magic consultant named Edward Kelly, who believed that he had a like magical connection to Enoch, and that Enoch revealed to him the language of Enochian, which is a very complicated magic system um, that is based on the principle that this Enochian language communicates directly with God, and it's pretty great. I'm fascinated by Edward Kelly, um, and that magical consultant is a to the Queen is a real job to this day. So yeah, Enoch got sucked up into God's spaceship. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. And Methuselah, at 969 years, is the oldest living, longest lived person in the Bible. And this point is played up a lot in kind of nomenclature. When something lives an exceptionally long time, it's usually called a Methuselah. Like there's a kind of desert tree called a Methuselah, where it barely exists on any water, and it's considered one of the only immortal species on the planet, in that it continues to age but not expire. It's bizarre. Like it just keeps living and adapting. Like they're like, no, it's never gonna die. Like it just like it's science. Unless something or someone chops it down, that it's gonna be there forever. And it's also another connection to vampires. Um, in the series Trinity Blood, the vampire species are called Methuselah, and they're governed by a boy vampire pope. And it's kind of like a position of like he's a king, and I think there's like Catholic imagery, and like it's like a bunch of like older politicians trying to like take advantage of him and abuse his position of power to like make him say and do weird stuff. Anyway, that's off topic, but that's like how Methuselah is still remembered and referenced today. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah. Noah means comfortable. And said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord had cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So yeah, Noah's I'm fine. Um, yeah, Noah kind of like stepped it back a bit. He's like, okay, if I kept this trend going, I would have had a baby at like 30, like which is like I think he would have been legally considered still a baby, just based on the lifespans of these people. Um, but those three boys become pretty important. Oh, then we're at 6. Oh, this is one of the best parts, guys. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. So God's already saying, like, hey, humans, I'm gonna like bail out on you in a bit. Um, so now you can all only live to 120. And again, this was like considered like God does not decrease the lifespan of humans again. So like it was understood for thousands of years that like the whole 120 years thing, yeah, like that's what we're supposed to be living to. But then like again, people are only like living to like 40, 45, like yeah. So where like the like 120 would be like expected like now. So like the kind of familiarity and normativity of like 120-year lifespan for all humans is kind of like where did that come from? Um, oh yes, but the sons of God, like again, it's mentioning that God has children, and that's the angels. Like God has tons of kids, and yeah, so the angels and humans, like two kind of like sister species, I guess, uh, start mating. Oh, it gets fun. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. So a Nephilim is a half human, half angel, which I made the argument with my sister that Jesus is actually the ultimate Nephilim because his dad is the angel of all angels. Um, so he's like a super uh, Nephilim. And also, Nephilim do come up again. Uh, I think once explicitly. And then another euphemism for Nephilim is giant. Um, so, like the story of like David and Goliath, Goliath the giant. He's actually a Nephilim. His mother Orpah uh, had a baby with an angel and had a giant son. Oh, but this is also a super important passage because it's kind of canonizing all world mythology as compatible with Judaism. It's kind of Baha'i before Baha'i was a thing. Um, because it says, like, these were the heroes of old, the men of renown. As in, like, all the stories of, like, the Greek demigods and the Roman demigods and the Macedonians and the pagan Arabs. Like, it's saying that the gods of other religions are actually just angels worshipped as gods, and like the stories of the heroes and the demigods are actually just stories about Nephilim. Like it was a recognition and understanding that like, oh, they're all talking about the same stuff, and like the same species, and also I love the sons of God, the daughters of humans, and like it's usually the like that's usually like it's translated in the King James as the daughters of man, and yeah. So I'm very big into the whole like world canonization thing with the kind of like the Bible as the hub text, like the refer like the key referential text. Um, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So again, this is another example of the God of the Bible having feelings. Like his heart weighed heavy. Like God is upset. Like God is having very real emotions. Like God is so upset with everything that he wants to destroy it. Also, this is also kind of key in that he excludes one branch of his creation from destruction, and that's the things that live in the water. The things that crawl on the ground, the birds of the sky, the creatures of the land, and the land itself. He in no way mentions the ocean, which he mentions several times in the beginning of Genesis. Um, and another key point is that this chapter, uh, section, begins with pointing out that two like sister species, humans and angels, and then the hybrid species of Nephilim. So God's kind of like it, and like a lot of people, especially like how the Nephilim are remembered today, is that a lot of people think when the flood of Noah happened, which will come up in the next video, um, that like the Nephilim all died and became the demons of hell, and from what I understand from my own research is that the humans were extremely antagonistic towards Nephilim, and like whereas like Adam was a son of God and Eve, so now it's to the point where like we're dealing with God's great 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 grandchildren, um, versus his grandchildren from the union between the angels and humans. So kind of like it's kind of like the humans are being awful to God's grandkids, and God sees this as so inexcusable that he decides to wipe out the human species. And now we're at Noah and the flood. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And this is like Enoch, Noah walks faithfully with God. So like he and God have an actual personal physical relationship. Like just like God shows up and like it's like, hey Noah, and he's like, oh hey God, like now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. No one knows what cypress means. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long. There is so much debate about how long a cubit is. 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring them into the ark. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. So yeah, this is the building of the ark. And again, this has huge parallels to the story of Gilgamesh now, where the character of Noah is reflexive of Utanapsim, and which just means the old man. Um, because in the Babylonian version of the story, one the schematics for making the ark, like El comes down. Um, no, I think it's actually Enki. Comes down to Utanapsim and gives him this exact same schematic to build an ark because he's like the gods are gonna flood the world. Um, except in the Babylonian story, once Noah and his family land on the top of Ararat, um, the gods make Noah and his wife immortal, uh, which is kind of a kind of like the Jewish deviation from the Babylonian mythos is that many figures that are parallel in the Hebrew religion are made mortal, whereas in the Babylonian context, they're understood to be divine and immortal, like Inanna, like Eve dies. Actually, we don't know if Eve dies because her death is never accounted for. Um, so what happens to Eve? Oh my gosh, Eve, where'd you go? Um, yeah. So like, and then again, like with Noah, like Noah dies, but Utanapsim doesn't, and yeah, it's just like it's a kind of like a the ultimate humanization of the divine. And it's also kind of the ultimate eventual building block towards monotheism that there is just one God because even other things we think that are gods are actually just like really long-lived mortals. Um, yeah. So there's one line left. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Yeah. So I'll mention this here. This is a part of the canon known as deluge mythology. Deluge means a great flood. Every single culture on the face of the earth has a very similar account to the story of Noah. It's just that we live in a kind of like Judeo Christian paradigm, so we get the Noah version of the story. But even every ancient religion has one, every contemporary religion has one. It's like and deluge studies is its own field just because like the want to understand this completely universal almost exact narrative being repeated across the entire planet as if it was some kind of like there's so many theories like some people say that it's a kind of cultural memory of a genuine horrible flood incident that some people will trace all the way back to like cave people times. Like just be like, oh, there was a big glacier that flooded and ruined a bunch of stuff. Um, but like it's from so many cultures. Like it's literally like the whole Hinduism has it. Uh, like every Indian religion has it. Every Chinese religion has it. Every European religion has it. Every African religion has it. Every South American and North American religion has a flood story. The Australians have flood stories. Like every single culture that has an apocalypse story has one of a flood that lasted about some factor of 40 and a god coming down warning a very small population of it to like build a boat and a lot of the time put animals on it and then wait for the flood to go down. um yeah, what I like to think, again, with like the whole heroes of renown thing, is that there was one giant flood at one time, but like all the different angels of all the different religions came down and like picked the best people from each region, and then there was like a Noah of India and like a Noah of China, like it just kind of like the best of the people, then like kind of like starting over with like just Noah and his family. Um, yeah. So kind of like with the whole like there's Adam and Eve, but there's also all the people outside of Eden, like where there's already cities and stuff. Um, yeah. So that's all for today. We made it to 45 minutes, which is a lot shorter than the first video. So I hope everyone has a good time whenever you're watching this. I'm gonna go to bed because I'm crazy pooped. Like, oh, I actually have some Chinese food. I'm gonna eat that first. Then I'm gonna like hit bed really hard. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you learned some awesome stuff and got like enriched with the Bible. Oh, another fun point. Again, because uh, Yahweh is an ocean god. He he's probably has like no qualms with like keeping everything in the ocean alive. This is also why people think that things like dragons and like the Leviathan and like demons like lived on is because like they like went into the ocean and yeah. Yeah, again, have a great time. Thanks for watching. Later, homies.